Kael Thornwell had everything: fame, money, and millions of followers hanging on his every post, while Jalen Reeve had nothing but silence and shadows. Yet only one of them would walk out of that basement alive. Kael Thornwell had everything a teenager could dream of: luxury cars, designer clothes, a massive social media following, and parents who seemed to believe their son could do no wrong. His family lived in Crestvale Hills, a gated community where image was everything and money solved most problems. From a young age, Kael had learned that consequences rarely applied to him. If he crashed his BMW, a new one arrived the next day. If he failed a class, his father made a call and the grade was adjusted. He wasn't just rich, he was untouchable. By the time he turned 17, Kael was known more for his arrogance than anything else. He had dropped out of extracurriculars, stopped listening to his teachers, and focused all his attention on building his online presence. His videos featured risky pranks, humiliating stunts, and moments of law-breaking that somehow never led to trouble. He filmed himself throwing fireworks into public trash bins, stealing from stores, and once, driving at 120 miles per hour while filming a selfie. His fans cheered him on. Every new clip gained thousands of views. His followers called him fearless. His parents called him gifted. No one called him dangerous, yet. Kael surrounded himself with a group of teens who followed his lead without question. They weren't real friends. They were props in his videos, boys and girls who wanted to share the spotlight, even if it meant joining in when things went too far. He treated them like background noise, using them for laughs, challenges, and fake drama. When one of them tried to speak out about how far Kael had gone, the story was buried. Kael's parents hired lawyers to threaten the family with defamation suits. The boy who spoke out disappeared from social media. Kael's reputation remained intact. Even at school, teachers had learned to tread lightly around Kael. When he mocked classmates or refused to participate in class, the administration looked the other way. After all, his parents donated generously to school fundraisers and sponsored events. Confronting Kael wasn't just uncomfortable, it was dangerous. He was known for recording private conversations and twisting them into jokes for his videos. More than one teacher had left the school after finding themselves mocked online by Kael's fanbase. Kael's belief that he was above everyone else only grew with time. He believed rules were for people who didn't have power. To him, everything was content. A crying student, a vandalized locker, a teacher's frustration, it was all part of his entertainment empire. He once released a video showing him sneaking into the principal's office, changing the desktop background to a meme, and stealing snacks from the cabinet. The school issued a public denial, but the video stayed online for weeks. Behind the camera, there were darker moments. His humor grew crueler. His pranks took a meaner tone. He began targeting vulnerable students, those who wouldn't fight back. Some said Kael took pleasure in watching others break down. But as long as his content made people laugh, no one seemed to care. His followers kept increasing. Sponsors started reaching out. It seemed like Kael's future was limitless. But cracks had already started forming. A student he humiliated in one of his live streams transferred schools after a breakdown. A girl who was secretly filmed by Kael during a private conversation attempted to press charges, only to withdraw them after her family was bombarded by online hate. Kael always walked away clean. Then, one night, Kael hosted a party at his mansion. Alcohol flowed freely, music blasted through the hills, and his phone never stopped recording. But this party wouldn't end with just another viral clip. Among the guests was a quiet boy from out of town, someone who didn't fit into Kael's world but showed up anyway. His name was Jalen Reeve. No one knew much about him. By morning, he was gone. And for the first time, Kael Thornwell found himself at the center of something even his money couldn't make disappear. The rain came down in sheets the night Jalen Reeve disappeared. Crestvale Hills rarely saw such weather, and when it did, The wealthy residents stayed indoors, relying on their security gates and home surveillance systems to keep the outside world at bay. But that night, Kael Thornwell's mansion was alive with music, lights, and dozens of teenagers, many already intoxicated before they even entered. His parties were legendary, strictly invite-only, with every moment filmed, edited, and posted for millions of views. The Thornwells were out of town, giving Kael full control of the house, and more importantly, no supervision. Jalen Reeve was not on the official guest list. He wasn't from Crestvale, didn't wear designer brands, and had no online presence to speak of. A quiet boy from a neighboring town, Jalen had transferred schools recently after a difficult year. He kept to himself, avoided conflict, and never tried to draw attention. No one really knew why he showed up that night. Some believed he was brought by a friend. Others thought Kael had invited him personally, hoping to use him in one of his twisted prank videos. Whatever the reason, Jalen walked into that mansion and was never seen again. The next morning, the house was littered with broken bottles, plastic cups, and the aftermath of a night that blurred the line between fun and recklessness. Kael uploaded a series of clips titled Mansion Mayhem, showing kids dancing, a harmless food fight, and someone jumping into the indoor pool fully clothed. There was no sign of Jalen in any of the videos, not even in the background. When Jalen's parents reported him missing, Kael claimed he barely remembered the kid being at the party. He said Jalen left early and probably went home. His tone was dismissive, confident, even a little amused. There were no witnesses who could place Jalen leaving the house. A few guests said they saw him head toward the basement area around midnight. Others admitted they didn't notice him much at all. There were no security cameras inside the house. Kael had disabled them to maintain privacy for his content. Outside footage was too dark and blurry to offer anything helpful. With no clear evidence and no body, the case remained in limbo. Kael returned to posting, shifting his content to less controversial stunts for a while, trying to avoid public scrutiny. But something about the story didn't sit right with Detective Lyra Canwell, a veteran officer with a reputation for solving difficult cases. She had learned to trust her instincts. The details were too clean, too staged. The statements from Kael and his friends were rehearsed, full of the same phrases, the same denials. Something was being hidden. And Jalen's phone had last pinged near Kael's house before going dead. That alone was enough for Canwell to begin looking deeper. She started by examining Kael's digital footprint. His social media accounts were flashy, loud, and polished. But beneath the surface, she discovered dozens of deleted clips. Some reported by users for bullying or violent content, others taken down quickly, likely due to legal pressure. Canwell filed for access to Kael's cloud storage, encrypted backups, and hard drives. It took time, but when the warrant came through, she had what she needed. The real breakthrough came when she reviewed metadata from the Mansion Mayhem videos. Several timestamps were altered. Gaps existed between clips, periods where filming had clearly occurred but the footage was missing. She found file remnants labeled Basement Challenge, partially corrupted but recoverable. In one, Jalen's figure could be seen briefly walking down a hallway with Kael behind him. In another, audio captured heavy breathing, a door slamming, and faint laughter. The original videos had been deleted, but the traces left behind told a story Kael had tried to erase. At this point, Canwell knew Jalen had never left the house. She knew Kael was lying. She also knew that proving it would take more than partial footage and suspicion. Without a body or confession, the case remained circumstantial. But she wasn't finished. The Thornwell name might have protected Kael for years. But Lyra Canwell had no interest in wealth or reputation. She was chasing the truth, and she was closing in fast. Detective Lyra Canwell sat in front of a large monitor, reviewing frame after frame of corrupted video pulled from Kael Thornwell's cloud backup. The digital fragments were incomplete, but they were enough to paint a disturbing picture. Jalen. Reeve had been inside Kael's mansion much longer than anyone claimed. One brief clip showed Jalen entering the basement hallway with Kael walking just behind him. The footage ended abruptly, but it contradicted Kael's earlier claim that Jalen had left the party early. The task now was to recover what Kael had tried to delete. Detective Thornwell brought in Rhett Mora, a quiet but brilliant digital forensics expert known for reconstructing heavily damaged video and audio. He worked with a calm intensity, using advanced tools to scan every byte of Kael's deleted files. It didn't take long for him to find a directory Kael had tried to wipe clean, a hidden folder within a hidden folder, titled with a simple _. Inside were fragments of raw footage, some too corrupted to view, others chilling in their clarity. One file stood out. It was video only, showing Jalen seated on the floor of a dimly lit room, looking confused and scared. The walls appeared to be concrete, possibly a storage space. The video had no sound, but it was enough to tell something had gone very wrong. In another clip, Kael's reflection appeared in a glass panel, recording on his phone. He moved the camera playfully, almost proudly. Though the audio had been stripped from the recovered files, the visuals said enough. Thornwell and Mora pieced together the timeline. Kael had led Jalen into the basement during the party, possibly under the guise of a prank. He had then locked him in what appeared to be a windowless, soundproof storage room behind the wine cellar. Based on the timestamps, Jalen had been trapped inside for hours. The last available frame showed the door being shut firmly, followed by darkness. Rhett Mora also recovered metadata indicating Kael had edited multiple versions of the footage before deleting the originals. That meant the incident had been documented, manipulated, and intentionally covered up. Mora discovered a local backup from one of Kael's mobile devices. He had failed to disconnect it from automatic syncing. That misstep turned out to be crucial. In that backup was a rough cut of a video Kael had begun editing under the title Basement Scare. It had never been posted. This unposted edit included a few horrifying seconds of Jalen screaming and pounding on the metal door while Kael's voice, recorded off-screen, taunted him. The tone wasn't humorous or playful. It was mean, sharp, and disturbingly detached. Even though the footage cut out quickly, it was undeniable proof that Kael had locked Jalen in the basement and left him there, fully aware of the consequences. Detective Thornwell now had enough to present to the district attorney. With court approval, she obtained a new warrant to search Kael's home, specifically the basement area. The previous search had focused on common areas and visible rooms. This time, with digital evidence in hand, she was going deeper. Kael remained confident. He continued to post lifestyle content, gym selfies, and product promotions. He didn't know how close the investigation had come. He didn't know that the footage he had tried to erase had survived. His lawyers, as always, denied all allegations and accused the police of targeting their client for fame. But Thornwell was unmoved by their tactics. She had reviewed enough cases to know when a predator was hiding behind privilege. And Kael's digital fingerprints were everywhere, on video, audio, file logs, and backup data. No amount of wealth could erase what had been uncovered. The evidence pointed to one truth. Jalen Reeve had never walked out of that house. And now, the law was ready to walk in. The new search of the Thornwell mansion began just after sunrise. A quiet team of investigators moved through the property while Kael was away at a gym appearance for one of his sponsors. This time, they weren't looking for general clues. They had a precise target, the basement. More specifically, the space behind the wine cellar, where the last footage of Jalen Reeve had been recorded. From the outside, the Thornwell mansion appeared immaculate. Marble floors, sparkling chandeliers, and curated artwork created an illusion of perfect order. But downstairs, behind locked double doors and past rows of expensive wine bottles, officers found something else entirely. On one of the back walls, a panel didn't match the others. When pressed, it gave way slightly. Hidden behind it was a narrow, soundproofed chamber with concrete walls and no windows. Inside were clear signs that someone had been kept there. On the floor, investigators found a torn hoodie, later confirmed by Jalen's parents to belong to their son. The hoodie was damp, covered in dust and small bloodstains. There were claw marks etched into the walls at about chest height, made by fingernails scratching desperately at the hard surface. In the far corner was a crushed plastic bottle, and just beneath a loose floor tile, a phone, Jalen's phone, cracked but still holding enough data to match his last GPS location. The room was dry with no ventilation. Any sound from inside wouldn't have reached beyond the walls. It had been intentionally constructed to hide both presence and noise. Based on recovered files, the investigators believed Kael had used it as a filming set, a secret location for videos too extreme or incriminating to post. As word of the discovery spread through the police department, Kael was brought in for questioning. He remained smug, relaxed, and indifferent. His lawyers advised him to say nothing, and he followed their guidance. But outside the interrogation room, things were changing fast. A forensic team found traces of Jalen's DNA on a piece of broken trim inside the secret room. The scratches matched the length and position of human hands in distress. In a matter of hours, the media caught wind of the case. Headlines exploded with stories about Crestvale's golden boy being connected to a potential homicide. Social media, once Kael's greatest weapon, turned on him. Old videos were reanalyzed by viewers who now looked at them through a different lens. What once seemed like harmless pranks now appeared cruel and calculated. Kael's sponsors dropped, him one by one. His merchandise line went offline. Fan pages were deleted. His online empire began to collapse under the weight of the truth. Back at the crime scene, investigators uncovered one final clue: a small hard drive buried beneath cleaning supplies in a locked cabinet. It wasn't encrypted. On it were dozens of video drafts, including the full, uncut version of the night Kael had trapped Jalen in the basement. The footage was longer than what had been recovered from the cloud. It showed Kael laughing as Jalen begged to be let out, pacing around the room, clutching his phone. The camera never stopped rolling. In the final moments of the video, the screen went dark, but the audio continued. Jalen's voice became weaker, then silence. For Kael, it was just another video he thought he could edit, delete, and forget. But for the detectives watching it in real time, it was proof of a horrifying reality. The hard drive sealed the case. A judge issued a warrant for Kael's arrest. This time, there were no delays, no interventions, and no press conferences from expensive lawyers. Kael was taken into custody that evening, his hands cuffed, his fame gone. As the squad car drove away from Crestvale Hills, it was clear. The boy who thought he was above the law had finally met a wall he couldn't break through. Kael Thornwell's mugshot was broadcast on every major news outlet by the next morning. Once praised as a social media prodigy and local celebrity, he now stood accused of involuntary manslaughter, unlawful imprisonment, and obstruction of justice. The entitled teen who had mocked the rules his entire life was now facing a justice system that would not be bought, delayed, or silenced. His arrest marked the beginning of a legal firestorm. Detective Lyra Canwell had prepared meticulously for the prosecution. She handed over video evidence, GPS logs, metadata, and digital recovery reports, all documenting Kael's actions the night of the party. The discovery of Jalen's body came only days after the hard drive was found. A local utility crew had noticed an area of recently disturbed soil near a hiking trail that bordered Kael's estate. Buried in a shallow grave wrapped in a tarp, Jalen's remains were recovered, his identification still in his pocket. The autopsy confirmed the cause of death as asphyxiation, likely due to lack of oxygen. He had died locked in the hidden chamber, hours before the party ended, The evidence painted a grim and undeniable picture. Kael hadn't simply made a mistake. He had deliberately locked another human being inside a sealed room and walked away. He had filmed it, edited it, and attempted to cover it up. He hadn't called for help. He hadn't expressed remorse. He had tried to erase the entire event, believing he could continue living without consequence. The trial captured national attention. Cameras weren't allowed inside the courtroom, but journalists filled every seat. The prosecution built a timeline around digital evidence and witness testimony. Several of Kael's former friends, now distanced from him, testified to his behavior that night and in the days after. One even admitted Kael bragged about the basement scare being the wildest content never posted. That single statement, recorded under oath, destroyed any remaining defense Kael had. Kael's lawyers tried to argue that it had been a prank gone wrong, that he hadn't meant for Jalen to die, that he panicked, but the jury didn't buy it. The footage told a different story, a story of arrogance, cruelty, and complete disregard for another person's life. After 6 days of testimony and another 2 of deliberation, the verdict came in, guilty on all charges. The sentence was harsh. Kael Thornwell was given 28 years in state prison without the possibility of parole for the first 18. It was a decision that shocked many in Crestvale Hills, where families were used to seeing their problems disappear with the stroke of a pen or a check. But this time, justice held firm. Kael entered prison not as a celebrity, but as a cautionary tale. His followers vanished. His social media accounts were shut down. All brand deals and partnerships dissolved. Even his name became taboo in Crestvale. The community turned inward, ashamed of how long they had protected and enabled him. His parents withdrew from public life entirely, their wealth unable to clean the stain their son had left behind. Jalen Reeves' family never sought fame. They never held press conferences or gave interviews. They simply mourned quietly, visiting the trail where their son had been found and placing a bench there in his memory. It bore a simple plaque, "In memory of Jalen Reeve. Kindness matters." Detective Lyra Canwell received a commendation for her work on the case, but she never celebrated. To her, it was never about the victory. It was about the truth. One teenager had lost his life, and another had destroyed his own because no one had stopped him sooner. The case of Kael Thornwell became a national discussion about entitlement, unchecked privilege, and the dark side of digital fame. It was a reminder that no matter how high someone climbs, they are never above the law. And in the end, it wasn't Kael's followers or his money that defined him. It was the lesson he learned too late, taught not by likes or views, but by justice itself.